asking, how many of you have gone camping before? Yes, I'm in good company, and I hope that I'm in good company at home. For folks who are not familiar with camping, I will say that I wore my flannels because it helps with being warm, and I got my knit cap, so this is me embodying the altar of camping. And it's so important also for folks who might not have been familiar with camping to know those deep quartet voices and singing, as well as the high harmonies, sometimes can be useful when you're in those campsites and we don't have a fabulous piano player out there with us, because those songs can help ground you in the moment and help situate you when you prepare to camp. At least they've been helpful for me. And I think it's useful during this particular time when the world has glitched again. There's been government shutdown and food insecurities when billionaires are chasing trillions. Misinformation is spreading like wildfire, and the election is looming. Neighbors are worrying about groceries and medicine and families across the waters. Budgets are tight and tempers are sometimes tighter, and it can feel like we're living at end times. Chaos between what was and perhaps what's next, and yet, here we are. This morning we sang, "Come, come, whoever you are, that ours is no caravan of despair." And we didn't sing it because everything is fine. No, we sang it precisely because it isn't, and we choose one another. And then we sang, "This joy that I have, the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away." And we sing that not in denial, but in discipleship of hope. Author and activist Anne Lamott writes, quote, "Hope begins in the dark. The stubborn hope that if you just show up and try to do the right thing, dawn will come. Lighting our chalice is how we show up, trusting that dawn will come. Or at the very least, there will be light." Those who have gone camping, we know that everything revolves around having fire, not only for food, but for warmth. The circle where stories can be shared and songs uplifted. Our chalice is that fire, our portable flame of faith. We light it not as a sign of certainty, but as a practice of resistance. It's our small ritual by which we say to despair, "Not today, Satan." And I saw during this recent No Kings protest that someone had put in some letters in between that said, "Not today, spray tan." And so I'll leave y'all to who that person might have been talking about. Because you gotta laugh sometimes, as if the world is ending, as it sometimes feels like it is. We're not bunker people. We are camp people who can gather around and tell stories and jokes and unfold chairs and widen the circle and sing something true before the stars burn out. Maybe we pass some coffee-infused cocoa and roast metaphorical marshmallows made equal parts of theology, joy, and justice. And because joy is highly flammable, we handle it with reckless care and abundance. And I say this not as a metaphor, but as truly my ministry plan, in case y'all didn't know. This is it. Because also for folks who didn't know, that my plan was to go into the military as a chaplain. And when that didn't work out because they said no to my lovely transgender identity, it was up to me to make camp. And I get to do that with y'all. And to make camp is to resist despair's gravity by building small constellations of care. I think it's the UU practice of impermanent sanctuary. Lighting a chalice maybe on a wobbly table, even though y'all's table is quite stable. Or patching a tent with tape and laughter, again, although y'all probably got some new tents that we can share together sometime. And we sing, even though the silence would be so much easier, especially when it's cold outside. Making camp means refusing to let neighbors starve in the shadows of abundance. Yes, it looks like our Wednesday soulful potlucks returning with a vengeance. Yes, clap for that. Clap for it and show up on Wednesday, bringing your food to share with community and those who show up. And also show up when the next time we have a mobile food pantry like the one that we hosted with the Toco Community Alliance and the Atlanta Food Bank, where we had, as was shared, more walk-ups than usual. Because what that also translates to is more stories shared, more opportunities to connect. Making camp also looks like volunteers who show up early and stay late and still find breath to hum, even if you don't feel like singing. You hum and maybe go out of your way to give someone a ride home or to church. And we know that campers, we can't carry everything. And it's the same in life. We got to choose what we carry. Perhaps it's some warmth, some extra food, a light, some matches to help somebody out. Maybe a bucket that can double as a drum. I forgot it today, but it's all right. It's all right. Because overall, it's baggage. And spiritually, it's the same. Systems might wobble, whether it's political, environmental, or economic, and we ask, what is worth carrying forward? Will we drag cynicism and individualism into the next world that we're building? Or will we pack care and courage and community and maybe some books from some authors that I'm seeing around this crowd? In The Parable of the Sower, another book that if y'all haven't checked out, y'all should, by Octavia Butler, who is the mother of speculative liberation theology, I'll say. She wrote of a young Black woman surviving societal collapse, not by dominating others, but by adapting and planting seeds, and by writing a new scripture of interdependence. Some of y'all might not know that Earthseed is an actual religion that was founded and based on this book. They share scripture like, quote, as wind, as water, as fire, as life, God is both creative and destructive, demanding and yielding, sculptor and clay. This God is infinite potential. This God is change. I hear that, not unlike Unitarian Universalism, that the God of Earthseed is wildly dynamic and malleable. She continues, quote, beware, God exists to shape and to be shaped. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change, end quote. Change can be scary for a lot of folks because it can cause a lot of chaos. But Butler wasn't predicting doom. She was giving us a manual. And then the author, activist, Adrienne Maree Brown kind of continued that as she co-hosts the podcast, How to Survive the End of the World. Have y'all heard of that? If you haven't, you got to check it out sometime. They call it learning from apocalypse with, quote, grace, rigor, and curiosity. I think that as a faith of spiritual truth seekers, many of us know that apocalypse is never the end of a story. Some of us know that the word apocalypse in Greek literally means unveiling, the moment when something hidden is revealed. So maybe, just maybe, in this collapse and that we're trying to make a campfire around, maybe this collapse is not the end, it's the beginning of a deeper truth. Adrienne Maree Brown, in another book, well, in her book, Emergent Strategy, she's often quoted for having said, quote, things are not getting worse. They are getting uncovered. We must hold each other tight and continue to pull back the veil. Making camp is how we hold each other tight while the veils come off. It's how we choose community over chaos. And I know, let's be real, apocalypse makes for great cinema, but the imagery is terrible for community organizing. It's terrifying, it's scary. So instead of apocalypse, truly, I think of this as a great unraveling. And so if the world is unraveling, then our task is to reweave. In the morning service, there were literal weavers in the community who were sewing hats. And actually, I see one now. I just looked out. In cold times like these, literal weavers can be especially helpful. I really am giving shout out to the scarf and cap knitters who spread warmth as we can, because y'all know I ain't got no hair under here, and there's so many of us who don't have hair and need the caps to keep us warm, and scarves. Adrienne Rich would translate this kind of small act into a poem that is prayed this way. She says that her heart is so moved by all that she cannot save, by all that has been destroyed, that she has to cast her lot with those who age after age, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. I want to read it again. Adrienne Rich prayed it this way. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who age after age, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. That is what we are doing here, reconstituting the world, one knit cap, one cooked casserole, one protest, one pastoral visit at a time. The federal government may crash, but love, it keeps rebooting. That is resurrection power. It's the truth. And I gotta say that Atlanta offers a case study in resurrection. As a recent transplant, I've had the benefit of a fresh look at our city, and a special thanks to everyone who's given me books or taken me on little tours around Atlanta. Because during that time, I've learned that Atlanta has flamed out and begun again more times than history has likely recounted. Atlanta was burned to ashes and then reborn in reconstruction and reinvented by migrants, musicians, and dreamers. This place is proof that the so-called end of the world has not been the end of a story. From Dr. King's pulpit to Outkast music studio, from Spelman's college campus classrooms to Beltline murals, Atlanta knows how to remix despair into rhythm. UUCA is a part of that lineage. Even our quartet singers, y'all, I heard that some of them have been singing together for 30 years. 30 years. Every member of a covenant group, a singing group, every volunteer in this congregation is a thread in the fabric of a city that is still daring to love itself forward. Making camp at the end of the world means joining that lineage, choosing creative solutions over cynicism, community over individual comfort, and singing over silence. I do gotta say one little small note on the creative solutions over cynicism, because as much as I love witnessing the ways that communities all over the nation are coming together to make sure that folks eat this season when the government is not doing what they're supposed to do, I gotta just say that I hate that it takes these kind of circumstances for us to come together. I just needed to name that, because although I'm uplifting it, it's not all right. It's a shame that these things are happening, that then we need to do this. Needed to say that. And then bring it on back to Sister St. Audre Lorde, who called joy as an act of resistance. Yes. She also wrote that, quote, sharing of joy forms a bridge between people that can be the basis for understanding much of what is not shared, end quote. In a collapsing world, joy is how we declare our continued humanity. It's how we connect to one another and get the stories underneath the missing meal. If we don't meet people with joy, they don't want to open up and talk about their situations. Joy, again, is how we declare our continued humanity. It's not ignoring suffering, it's refusing to let suffering have the last word. In this way, making camp is communal because no one survives in the wilderness alone, though capitalism tries to convince us otherwise. At camp, we share. We share our fire, we share our food, we share our stories, we share bug spray that sometimes translate as to hater repellent that we gotta put out sometime, you know? I also say that UU moral equivalent is mutual aid and covenantal care. As Reverend Julian Soto says, all of us need all of us to make it. Making camp means living as though that is already true right now, which is why we hold Share the Plate Sundays and we partner with Toco Hills and we do things with the Spiritual Life Center to not only help feed those in need, but also gather together in song like we're doing today after service at 3 p.m. In these ways, we're not waiting for utopia. We're prototyping heaven in the here and now. Yes, UUCA is one of Atlanta's living campsites of conscience, rooted in the legacy of this city that has always known how to rise from ashes. I'm looking at our Phoenix right there. On the podcast, How to Survive the End of the World, the Brown sisters talk about this global freedom flotilla with artists and activists sailing towards Gaza, bringing supplies that they know won't meet every need, but still going because Adrian says that the spirit of it matters. That's the same spirit here. Our boats may be smaller, our neighborhood mutual aid efforts and pantry work and even our election campaign works, they might seem small, but they are actually great acts of moral imagination. Every bag of groceries, every vote that we help cast for equity and care, every protest song sung under an overpass is like a little flotilla of love sailing through the siege lines of despair. Autumn Brown reminds us that, quote, artists are constantly writing into a future what is possible, end quote. And that's what we are doing when we care for each other amid a shutdown. We're writing into a future we want to see, a Georgia where no one goes hungry, no matter who's in office. In these ways, it's like us saying that if the government won't open its coffers, we will open our cupboards. If politics fail to deliver compassion, we will become compassion incarnate. If SNAP is frozen, then we snap into action. Really? Yes. Because our theology says that there is no them and us, there is only a us. Another word for worship is liturgy, and it means the work of the people. And our work right now is to care in ways that confound cynicism. UU theologian Rebecca Parker once wrote that the choice to bless the world can take you into a solitude to search for the sources of power and grace within you, between you, and among you. As we go into the winter and the fall seasons, know that you can allow this choice to bless the world to take you into a solitude to search out the sources of power and grace within you, between you, among you. That's what we're doing here in this campfire of community, searching for the grace between us to share. We know that caring for one another is not soft, is not naive, it is deeply political. In fact, it is revolutionary. Yes. Bell Hooks taught us that rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation, that healing is an act of communion. And it is our communion of coming together and bringing casseroles and grocery cards and helping to support voter turnout. This revolutionary act of healing comes by refusing to look away from hunger and naming it as a moral failure. It comes in seeing that local county elections, the ones that decide who funds food programs and housing initiatives and school meals, that those things are not small. They are sacred acts of shaping the world that we camp within. Voting for us is pastoral. It's how we make our compassion real. So in these coming days, when the local election will decide investments in schools and healthcare and food security and climate resilience, this is where our UU values can take flesh. When you cast your ballot for someone who believes in feeding children, you are expanding the campfire of compassion. When you support leaders who affirm productive rights, racial equity, and democracy itself, you are keeping the flame alive for the next generations. I mean, y'all, we might not control Washington, but we can shape Atlanta. Yes, y'all believe that? Yes, we right here can build a city that lives by the principle of inherent worth and dignity of every person. And that, my friends, is sacred work. And just before I close, I also need to name what's also sacred work. There are some of us in this room and beyond who have lived through personal world endings, world-shattering moments with deaths and divorces and diagnoses and uncomfortable departures. And in those situations, you might not have the strength to come and build a campfire right now. Maybe all you can do is show up and warm your hands by someone else's fire, and that's all right. Making camp means that you don't have to do it all alone. It is enough to be a part of this circle. Just this morning when I was reflecting on this, I swear to you, I started singing glory, glory, hallelujah, that there is a community that can come and we can lay our burdens down together and sing by the fireside.